Good evening. Tonight's daf is daf Tes Zayin, Amud Aleph. We are going to begin. We're holding Amr Rabbi Yirmiyah. So the line starts with Amr Rabbi Yirmiyah. Okay, so now the Gemara asks another question with regards to combining these liquids, etc. Okay, so Amr Rabbi Yirmiyah said, Hari Amru. They said in the Mishnah. This is a Mishnah in Zavim. Mishnah in Zavim, there's a Mishnah Hay, Perek Hay, Mishnah Yud Beis. He says, Haba Reish V'Ruba B'Mayim She'uvim. In case of somebody whose head and most of his body go into drawn water, Mayim She'uvim. Yeah, it's a very practical case these days. If, let's say, a person goes to mikveh, right? He goes to mikveh, and nowadays the mikveh is people want to take showers after the mikveh. So now what happens? A person went to mikveh, in the olden days the mikveh was very, very not clean. It was dirty. So a person's head and most of his body enter into the mayim she'uvim of drawn water after he went to the mikveh, and then what happened was a pure person who 3 lug of drawn water fell on his head and most of his body. So what's the halacha? The halacha is both of these people are tummy. So again, if a person went to mikveh and then most of his head and most of his body went into mayim she'uvim, drawn water, or a case and a tar that a pure person with 3 lug of drawn water fell on his head and most of his body. So the halacha is, the Mishnah said both of these cases are tummy. So Rabbi Yirmiyah raised the shaila, chetzi bebiyah v'chetzi b'nefila. What if half of a person became tar by entering into drawn water, and half of him became purified by having the water fall on him? Shaila is what's the halacha? So the Gemara says, teiku is taka going to be a shaila. Okay, similarly, Amar Papa says, Hari Amru, they said in the Mishnah Mikvah said, Balkeri chayla. If you have, in the case of a sick person who had a keri, he experienced a seminal emission. He had 9 kav of water poured over him, so that the is tar, he's tar. The Papa says, if half of him was purified by going to the mikveh, and half of him through pouring water on him, Shaila is what's the halacha? So he says, teiku, it's the teiku. Okay, so now we're going to go back to what we discussed in the beginning of the Mishnah. We got a little bit sidetracked, but now we're going to go back to what we said in the Mishnah. The Mishnah said, Echad oimer b'fanei nichtav, ve'echad oimer v'geimer. B'chuli. Okay, so we said, if one person says that, one aid says, you have 2 aidim, 2 shluchim, that they bring the get, and one aid says, b'fanei nichtav, I saw the get being written, and the other aid says, I saw the get being signed. But both of them, you don't have one guy that says b'fanei nichtav or b'fanei nechtam. Okay, so now Amar Shmuel bar Yehuda Amar Rabbi Yochanan. So Shmuel bar Yehuda says, Shmuel bar Yehuda says in the name of Rabbi Yochanan, they taught this halacha in our Mishnah that the get is possible only if the get was not produced by both of them in court. In other words, the halacha applies only if they were not both shluchim for bringing this for this get. So in other words, like Rashi said this before, if one of them you have like this, one of them is a shliach and one of them is not a shliach. Appointed the shliach the baal, the husband, appointed one of them, but the other aid was not a shliach. So again, so when do we say this? Then is ella she'ein haget yetzim mitachas yedei shneim. If the get was not produced by both of them, in other words, that both of them are not shluchim. One of them was a shliach and one of them wasn't a shliach. But I will get yetzim mitachas yedei shneim if the get was produced by both of them. Turn over to Zayin Amud base. Then the halacha is kosher. It's going to be kosher. Alma, so what do you see from here? We see clearly from our Mishnah, that if two people brought from overseas, they do not need to say b'fanenu nichtav u'b'fanenu nechtam. You see clearly that if both of them brought overseas, and they said, they don't have to say it was written in our presence and it was signed in our presence. So Abaya said to the Shmuel Bar Yehuda, if this is true, if the Mishnah is referring to specifically a case where the get was not produced by both of them, so then you have a shaila. Say if the diktani, in the later case of our Mishnah, it says if two people say it was written in our presence, and the third one says it was signed in my presence, so then what's the din puzzle? It's going to be puzzle. Rabbi Yehuda machshir. Rabbi Yehuda holds that will be kosher. What's the reason why it's okay? Is because what's the reason why the get is puzzle is specifically the fact that the get was not produced by both of them. But if the get was produced by both of them, then the Chacham will hold it's okay. So the Gemara says, Amarle, so Shmuel Bar Yehuda said to Abaye yes, Chachamim would hold that this get is kosher. So the Gemara says, so in a case where the get was not produced by both of them, so exactly what do they disagree? So he says like this: Mar Sovar, the Chachamim hold Gazrin and Dilma Asya Lechlufi became Shtaris Ta'alma. The Chachamim decree that this get is puzzled because then people will come to confuse this case with a typical case of Shtaris. They're going to think that it's possible to ratify this document with one witness, just like the get. And Umar Sovar and Rabbi Yehuda holds that no, Legazir and the Chacham do not decree that this is possible for this reason. Lishna Achrine, another way to learn it is Azay. Lishna Achrine Amrle, that Rav Shmuel Amri Lo. So some say that the another version of this discussion went as like this: Amr Rabbi Bar Shmuel, Amr Rabbi Yechanan, I feel the get yates b'tachas deishneim, even if both of them produce the get, then puzzle. Why? Alma, we see kasavar shnaim shaviu get in dinasiyam. You see, if two people bring a get in dinasiyam, tzrichin sheyem b'fanin nechtam, they have to say it was written in our presence and it was signed in our presence. So Abaye said to Melamata, but say if you look down shnaim sheyem b'fanin nechtam. Abaye said that in the case, let's look at the end of the Mishnah. If it was written in our presence and one person says it was signed in my presence, then the halacha is the get is possible, and Rabbi Yehuda says it's kosher. Afilu get yotzim mitachas deishneim pasler abanan. So the Gemara asks, even when the get was produced by both of them, the Chacham hold it's invalid. Amarle, they said yes, in it yes. So the Gemara says, "B'may komifli." So what are they arguing? Mar Sovar, the Chachamim hold that the reason we have to say b'fanei nichtav is because the fishem became the shma. Mar Sovar lefishein edim mitzuyim lekaima. So the Gemara asks, "Lema de Rabba v'Rabba Tanoi." Shall we say that the machlekes between Rabba and Rava is really a machlekes Tanoim? The Gemara says no. Like Rava mitaris klishna kama, Rava resolves his issue in accordance with the first way of learning the first version. And the Gemara says, Rabba will tell you the kula alma being the shema. Everybody agrees that you need to have the shema. What are we talking about over here? After the people outside of Eretz Yisrael learned about lishma. So what's the machlekes? And they're arguing in regards to if we're worried that the matter will return to its corrupt state. In other words, people overseas will forget the din of lishma. The Marsavar Gazrinan, the Chacham hold we make the Gazeda, or Marsavar, and Rabbi Yehuda holds like Gazrinan, we don't make the Gazeda. Friday Gemara v'liflug nami Rabbi Yehuda Bereisha. If so, let Rabbi Yehuda disagree with regards to the first case of the Mishnah concerning where one shliach says it was written in my presence, and the other shliach says it was signed in my presence. In other words, why does he disagree only about a case where two say that the document was written in their presence? So my answer is, you should know that Rabbi Yehuda also argues on the Reisha as well. Okay, so Mosif from Rabbi Isha asked a Shaila on to the opinion of Ula. Bryce says, Rabbi Yehuda says this get is kosher in the case of this, but not in another case. My lav. It must be that he's coming to exclude the case of when he says it was written in my presence, and one says it was signed in my presence. So the Gemara says no. It's coming to exclude a case where one witness says it was signed in my presence, but it was not written in my presence. So the Gemara says, you would think will come to confuse this case with a typical case of a shtar. So nami like gazer kamashim lo, then we do make the gzera. Okay, we're going to stop over here. But Itmar Nami will start again in